Hello, viewers. Is your guy OBG again today? Um, you're welcome to Broken Not Shattered. Today we have a very phenomenal guest by the name Cody Green. Um, Before I bring up Cody Green. It's been a wonderful time having you guys come in, week out, just to pay attention to what we do, and we are grateful and we thank you for always visiting and spending time with us. Now, right into the chase, I'm gonna bring up Kobe into the room. Um, Kobe, permit me to read your bio a little. So, Cody Green is diagnosed of undifferentiated schizophrenia. He is a motivational speaker and a content creator with a following of over 1 million on TikTok. Cody's journey has included challenges with drug addiction, incarceration, and serious mental health struggles. To deepen his impact as advocate and speaker, Cody trained as a peer support specialist, recovery coach, and suicide prevention specialist. Today, he shared his personal experience and insight on overcoming adversity, negotiating mental health challenges, and rebuilding life after incarceration. Cody's dedication to mental health advocacy, schizophrenia awareness, drug recovery, and second chance opportunity is fueled by his lived experience. Kobe, you are welcome to the studio. Kobe, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Kobe, do you think there's anything I missed out from this?
The only thing I haven't updated in my bio is I'm also a recent author, and so I have been able to share my story on social media for years now, and I was really lucky to be able to write a book about mental health and mental illness in the workplace, and it's been able to reach a lot of people and hopefully make an impact on how we look at mental health in the workplace for all sorts of different industries.
That's interesting. Kobe, so how you doing generally? What's going on?
I'm doing really well in my current, state where I've been really lucky to have a foundation of good support around me. And I have a lot of really unique opportunities in my journey through mental health awareness. I get to do a lot of collaborating with other mental health advocates, which always for me is the most important thing that I do. It reminds me how important it is, not just for me to share my story, but to hear other people's stories as well.
So, Kobe, you've been through addiction, incarceration, mental health struggle. What moment stands out as the turning point in your recovery journey?
I think for me, it was when I was originally, I was getting through my addiction. I was released from jail, and I was able to reach out to my friends and family to get additional help and resources. I was really fortunate that the people in my life were able to get me in to see a doctor. I was able to get a referral to a psychiatrist, and shortly after that, I had received my diagnosis. I was 21 at the time. I'll be 31 this year. So it's been about 10 years since I got sober and got my diagnosis, and got the help I needed to be able to live a full and functional life.
So Kobe, schizophrenia is often misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
What's one mind or misconception about that
I
that you're
think the
passionate about debunking at this moment?
I think the biggest misconception that I still hear is that people with schizophrenia can't live full functional lives, even with treatment and medication. So when people meet me, they have a hard time believing that I was diagnosed with schizophrenia because I'm doing quote unquote so well. And that I think can be really dangerous because it leads people to put an expectation on individuals with schizophrenia that they can't succeed or they can't be able to work or find goals or be able to do anything that like a normal person does in a day-to-day life. And so I think when someone's diagnosed with schizophrenia, we're not giving them the resources they need to really thrive. We're just giving them the resources enough to survive and not be able to pursue all the things that they would be able to do with the right help.
So I'm going to ask you, you've overcome addiction,
Hmm.
right? Incarceration, and you define strength now.
For me, strength is.
Have you overcome?
Oh, sorry. What was that?
Yeah, so have you overcome strength, incarceration, and addiction? How do you define strength?
For me, strength is understanding that it's okay to ask for help, but also being able to uh, rise to the occasion when you are able to do so independently. So I had to rely on help a lot early on, and it was when I got stable enough that I had to really take the reins and keep going with, the successes I was finally having in life. So uh, at that point, I could have very easily dropped what I was doing, went right back to my life of addiction, went right back to being in jail, but I had to really step up and understand that I had all this help early on, and this was my turn now to take over and make sure that I was able to do what I needed to do, not only for my mental health, but for my daily life, for pursuing new goals and being able to pursue like the dreams that I have been able to achieve now.
Interesting. So, was there ever a moment when you felt seen or accepted by someone, irrespective of the stigma?
I think the biggest turning point for me in feeling like understood and accepted was when people in my local community started to better understand my diagnosis. I live in a very small rural community, and they're really a little behind the times in conversations about mental health and addiction. And so when I started doing advocacy, I was reaching people all over the country, and I was being invited to speak at conferences, and my community still was very behind in understanding what I was going through. And I remember being invited back to speak at, local places where I live, and I started having conversations with people in my community about not just mental health, but men's mental health, addiction recovery, and all sorts of topics that I've never been able to break through in on a small rural community. So I've seen a lot of those conversations happening in places where they weren't before, and that's when I started to really feel like maybe I was being seen for more than just my illness, but as a person who overcame a lot of struggles, and as a person who was trying to educate people more about these different topics.
Interesting. So, Kobe, we're just going to go on a very quick break. And when we're back, we'll just continue from there. Hey, viewers. If you're just joining us, this is Broken Not Started, and today with us is KODY. And I did remember to tell you guys also that KODY is the co-founder and executive director of One Opportunity Hiring, a second chance employment agency. Kobe, you're doing so great. Kobe, I had wanted to ask you one question, but I said I was going to ask you that once we're back from the break. And that is your book. Your book was titled Mind Over Meetings. What was it all about?
So, Minds Over Meetings was about helping people understand that individuals with serious mental health issues or serious mental illness might need accommodations and assistance in the workplace. It's about how people with illnesses like mine can find different resources and accommodations, but it's also about how employers and HR can help people that are struggling be able to really thrive in the workplace and be able to keep and pursue jobs. That benefits not only the individual, but it benefits the workplace does not have to worry about rehiring and finding new talent. And so it really was meant to better help people understand mental health and just better understand how we interact with our brains and our bodies in the workplace, avoiding burnout, understanding workplace burnout, stuff like that.
So, Cody, I want to go back to schizophrenia,
Yeah.
and a whole lot of persons might really not understand what is schizophrenia. Can you share in a broader perspective what it is all about, how it is, how it was for you, before discovery, before diagnosis, during diagnosis, and after diagnosis?
Yeah. There's still a huge misconception where sometimes people confuse schizophrenia with DID, which is dissociative identity disorder. They are
Yeah.
not related. So DID is where people have multiple alters. It's what used to be known as multiple personality disorder. Schizophrenia is really having auditory and visual hallucinations. It's having paranoia and delusions. So for me, when I was first diagnosed, it really started with paranoid thoughts. So I was having constant paranoid thoughts that I was being followed, or I was being, persecuted by government agencies, by people around me. I also would then fall into delusional thoughts where I thought people in my life were trying to harm me. And that led very quickly into me struggling with visual and auditory hallucinations. And so I always describe those as something that if I'm seeing them or hearing them, they're real to me, even though no one else can see or hear what I'm experiencing. They're so real to the point where I can't be convinced otherwise. So if I'm having these symptoms, I truly believe in the moment that whatever I'm experiencing is real, no matter how outlandish it is, no matter how much it might not make sense. And so I really wanted to convey that to people. So when I started doing advocacy, I tried to really paint a picture of what my life actually looks like with this illness, what I experience, and all of the other things that I go through just with this diagnosis.
So what were those moments actually like? What were they like? If you were to describe those moments, what was it like?
It was incredibly scary. So basically, what I would experience was I would hear multiple voices, and they would be talking about things going on in my life. They would be telling me things that weren't true. And so not only was it scary, but it was very confusing because I didn't understand what was going on in my brain because of the delusions. I thought that I was developing some sort of ability to hear the voices of people around me, and so I was incredibly frustrated, confused, scared, and there wasn't really a amount of good resources in my area because I am from a small rural community. And so when all of those symptoms started happening, I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know who to turn to. And that just led to me falling into addiction as a way to try to cope. So the reason I started using drugs was because I was terrified of what was going on. I was scared from the things I was seeing, the things I was hearing, and I didn't know how to better react to it. I didn't know how to cope with it, so I tried to self-medicate using drugs instead of getting the help I really needed.
So at what point did you put away drugs and the rest?
So it wasn't until I was incarcerated and I went to jail that I was able to really understand that something might be wrong with me. And so I started, reaching out to my family. I'm very lucky that my mom's been a big part of my journey, but also my wife has been a huge part of me recognizing my illness and then getting help for it. So being able to talk to a psychiatrist and get a referral so that I could get the diagnosis was really big. And they made sure that I got through that process really quickly and I got the help I needed. And so my family support was huge in getting the help that got me to my stability. But for me, I think a huge turning point also was, after falling into addiction, I struggled even more with understanding what was going on around me. And so if it wasn't for, my time in jail and my ability to communicate with people around me, I don't think I ever would have been able to get that help.
Yeah. So what would you say was that thing that prevented you from shattering in that worst moment? And how would you offer that to others?
I would always try to remind, anyone who is struggling, whether it's with mental health issues, addiction, anything like that, that you're not alone. And it can feel like you are when you're going through it. It feels like you're alone in that journey, like no one could understand what you're going through. And so I always try to recommend that people check out peer support groups, whether that's online, whether it's in person, just getting in front of people who might better understand your struggles. And like I said, that doesn't have to be just for a schizophrenia diagnosis. People with severe depression, people with anxiety disorders, people with any sort of mental health or mental illness can reach out and ask for help and find people who understand what they're going through. And to me, that was one of the biggest reasons I was able to really get through this journey. So I can't say enough about peer support and finding help within your community, whatever your community looks like. There is always someone who will understand and who will be able to relate to what you're going through.
Yeah, so I want to ask you something around stigma.
Yeah.
There was one of your videos on Instagram where you said one of your followers reached DM'd you and said, "I don't care if you have, like, I don't care," right? Now, that brings me to asking you, what was the stigma around you like then, and how were you able to, maneuver it?
Yeah, I think the stigma when I started social media was it was just a lot of misunderstanding and miseducation. People didn't know a lot about schizophrenia, and there's a lot of people who still don't, and so that's why I keep doing the work I do, is because there's a lot of people who don't know what schizophrenia is. They don't understand it. They might think it's DID and not the actual disorder that it is. And so I spend a lot of time educating people. And a majority of my advocacy is just trying to make sure people understand what the illness really is, how it affects people, and what it really looks like for someone who might be living with it. Unfortunately, movies, TV shows, and the media have only furthered the stigma of schizophrenia by providing misinformation or by showing schizophrenia in an unrealistic way. And so advocates, not just me, but other schizophrenia advocates now, spend a lot of our time trying to educate people about what it really looks like, how it feels to live with this illness, and what it looks like to be able to recover as well.
Yeah. So Kobe, moving away a little from this, I was on your Instagram and I was, watching your clips. I watched the much I could, and I saw one. And there was one thing you said there that caught my attention. You said your girlfriend, now wife.
Yeah.
Tell us the story. What was it like? It must have been a beautiful story.
Yeah, so my wife and I have actually been together since before my diagnosis. So we started dating my senior year of high school, and it wasn't until my freshman year of college that I went through my psychotic break. And so she was with me through all of that. She watched me kind of decline in my mental health. She could tell something was going on, but she couldn't convince me to get help early on. And so she also watched me struggle with addiction. She was there while I was in jail. And then when I got out, she was the person I reached out to get help and to be able to, find all the resources I have now. And like I said, she was a big part of that help early on that allowed me to get to a point where I could find the strength to keep going. But she was the one who gave me that initial push. And she had to be there through all of it. And it was a very difficult journey. I'm very grateful she was there through that, because there's not a lot of people who I think would have been able to watch someone they love go through what I went through and still be able to help that person find help and find support. And so I'm so grateful that she was able to be there and help me through that journey that I was enduring. And she became a huge part of my life and still is to this day.
Yeah. There are a set of persons that I would want you to talk to. But before we get to that, having been through these, what is KODY trying to achieve now? Do you have a roadmap? Tell us holistically what KOBE wants to achieve now.
Yeah, my goal, my like long-term goal is to continue doing motivational speaking. I have an idea for another book that I'm pursuing right now, and then I always have new goals for social media. Like I have over 1 million followers on TikTok. One of my recent goals is to get over 1 million on YouTube. That's kind of the new platform I'm working on. And outside of all that, my main goal is always to continue working with patients living with schizophrenia. And so I get to do a lot of traveling and talking to people with my diagnosis in facilities all over the country. And that allows me to really connect with people who are struggling, who need additional support, and just need to be someone who's been there and has been through it. I think that gives people with my diagnosis a lot of hope for their own future, just recognizing that, someone made it through and someone got, treatment and medication and is living a full and functional life.
So, KOBE, now back to people I want you to talk to. It was interesting to see that your mom suffered schizophrenia, right? And I think that was why it was easier to understand what was wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice would you give to parents who probably may not have known what is happening to their children? That's the first set of persons I wanted to talk to, parents. And then the second set I want you to talk to are people who probably might be passing through this, who didn't understand or who don't know what they are passing through. And now the third persons are those who have been able to understand this and they're really finding it difficult. How do they get over it?
Yeah. So for parents, my advice is always educate yourself as much as possible, because unfortunately, if you have a child with schizophrenia or a severe mental illness, they might not be in a condition to educate or advocate for themselves. And so it's so huge that I think people find the resources they need through education, because education is really understanding. So if parents are able to better understand schizophrenia, they're able to better help their children who might be struggling. I think the other thing with parents is also reminding them that it's a long journey. It's not something that gets fixed overnight. Schizophrenia, because of the delusional state, can turn a person that you love, know, and recognize into someone that you're not able to recognize. And so you have to be really patient with the journey and understand that it is a long one. For anyone who might be struggling themselves or might be going through this journey, my advice is always, if you're stable enough, also education. Make sure you understand your illness. A lot of why I was able to get stability was because of other people who were helping me better understand schizophrenia and mental illness. And that leads into my second piece of advice, and it's peer support. Finding people who understand what you're going through can be a huge turning point, because then you can see right in front of you, like, hey, here's someone who's been through it. They understand. Different than talking to like a doctor or even a loved one. I got a lot of support from people in my family, but they couldn't really understand what I was going through. And so peer support gave me that ability to communicate with people in a very personal level that, a lot of people wouldn't be able to understand. And that's what gave me that final push to really, getting through my diagnosis and finding treatment and access to care.
That's interesting. So, KOBE, in the next 5 minutes, you have the stage. Imagine you're talking to your community. Imagine you're talking to the world. What do you have to tell the world? Advise people. Talk to people what KOBE would want them to hear and get to know.
I would love to see people really take their own initiative to better understand what schizophrenia looks like, but not just schizophrenia, mental illness, mental health, and how it affects people, and really try to be more empathetic about it. I think the reason we still have a lot of stigma and a lot of misunderstanding is because we don't really know what we're up against. And that can be scary for some people. People can be really frightened about what they're experiencing, and they can be really afraid watching someone they know or love go through different things. And so, my biggest ask is always to really try to understand. Uh, Try to put yourself in the position of someone who might be struggling, the lack of understanding they have of their own illness, of what they're going through, and then try to really use your ability to educate other people. So if you have an understanding of this illness, make sure you're correcting misconceptions. Make sure you're talking to people who don't understand what this illness looks like or how it affects people. And I think that can be huge for creating stigma breakers and really helping people navigate this illness in a fun way.
So Kobe, it was good from the beginning when you made mention of why you got on social media. And
Yeah.
let's flip it the other way around. You know, and what's the challenge in trying to spread your story through social media? More especially these days when everybody think everything on social media is all about stunt, view, and comment. What's the challenge you have with your story and what you're trying to pass through?
Yeah, I think with social media, it was just first of all, I didn't expect it to be a big platform, right? I didn't expect as many followers as I had. I wasn't doing it for likes and views. I was doing it to try to bring awareness to what I was going through, to what other people with my diagnosis go through. And so with that, I always want to make sure that people have a really inside view of my life, which can be very difficult because I was putting my whole life out on the internet for everyone to see, for everyone to try to understand. And that was really rewarding in some ways, but it also got to be very frustrating in a lot of other ways. Like people just have a lot of opinions based on information they know or don't understand. And so trying to really help people navigate, my illness while trying to educate other people who didn't understand what I was going through was both really rewarding and at times very frustrating. So I found that social media was just a way that I was able to communicate through a larger platform. I was able to reach a lot of people all over the world. And I wanted to try to use that in the best way possible. And I think advocacy through social media is becoming really popular. There's a lot of people advocating now for, different mental health, not only mental health, but different illnesses, different, understandings of topics that are really not talked about enough. So I'm just glad to be able to be in that advocacy realm and be able to try to help people better understand, what it's like, how people are affected, and then how people can get the help they need.
Kobe, it's so interesting to have you in the studio. Please, before you go, can you tell the audience how to get in touch with you? How do we get in touch with KODY?
Yeah, so my social media is, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I also have a LinkedIn page, which is probably the best way for people to reach out. You can find my email on any of my platforms, and always feel free to check out any of my podcasts, anything like that. And there's always a way to reach out to me through those as well. You can also find my website, which is kodygreen.com. And on there, it'll have any sort of way to reach out to me, including email, social media, stuff like that.
Kobe, so happy having you. Honestly, we are so happy that you were able to make it to the studio today. Well, so happy, and we say congratulations. Thank you so much for stopping by to share your story and help, lift someone else. Kobe, it's interesting having you today in the studio. Um, Before you go, we have this culture of, you leave a question for the next guest, not knowing who the guest is. So I'm going to ask you one question from the last guest, and then you're going to drop a question for the next guest. So,
Okay.
or do you find strength in the messy middle?
I think I've always found strength through just other people. So whether that's been, the people who inspire me, like my friends and family, or whether it's through advocates, whether it's through other individuals living with my illness, meeting on the street who recognize me, want to talk about my journey. I find a lot of my strength through other people going through the same thing. Whether, I talk to a lot of family members, stuff like that. Those people inspire me so much and really keep me going on this journey of advocacy and wellness.
So, what's going to be your question for the next guest?
My question for the next guest is, how do you take care of yourself even when, either spreading awareness or being able to help people in whatever way that you are doing that? So if you bring on an advocate, how are they taking care of themselves while spreading awareness?
Interesting. Kobe, with this, we've come to the end of our conversation today. And I'm going to say a very big thank you to you, Kobe. Thank you for stopping by. God bless you. Kobe, thank you for stopping by and sharing your story. And with our last and famous word, we say love, peace, and more grace. Thank you for stopping by. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye for now.